Summer, vacation, and holidays are over, the day is getting shorter, getting up in the mornings is harder, things have increased, but to solve problems and to cope with the heaping up routine there are no forces at all. Familiar? The breakdown with the onset of autumn has traditionally become accustomed to associate with the so-called seasonal depression. Not only nutritionists and fitness trainers, but dozens of gadgets and applications on the market promise to cope with mood swings, fatigue and daily stress. A lamp for improving performance, soothing trackers, and an application that will advise when to go for a walk with friends. We tell you how technology helps keep you upset on cold and dull autumn days. What is seasonal depression? And does it exist? The first professional psychiatrist to pay attention to the fact that mentally healthy people can suffer from severe disorders when the season changes, was Norman Rosenthal. He felt such seasonal changes on himself. In the 1980s, together with his wife, he moved from South Africa to New York. He found that in the winter months, both of them become apathetic for no reason and often suffer from depressed mood. The situation changed with the arrival of the warm season. The scientist shared his observations with a group of researchers from the National Institutes of Health. In 1984 they described seasonal affective disorder, SAR. It is worth noting that ATS is not allocated as a separate mental illness, but is considered a specification of a major depressive disorder. In this case, the diagnosis of major depressive disorder is made in the presence of 5 or more of the 9 symptoms. Each of them must manifest for at least 2 weeks. These include depressed mood for most of the day, occurring almost every day, a decrease in interest or pleasure in almost all activities, a sense of hopelessness or worthlessness, a decrease in vigor and fatigue, sleep disturbance, and several others. In addition, among them should be at least one of 2 main symptoms, depressive mood and/or loss of interest or pleasure. The diagnosis of seasonal affective disorder is made according to the following criteria: depression that begins and ends at a certain time of the year each year, the absence of depressive episodes during the rest of the year, and also if the number of seasons with depression, starting with the onset of the disorder, exceeds the number of seasons without it. For diagnosis, each of the criteria must be observed for 2 years. Scientists have been investigating the conditions and mechanisms for the onset of ATS for more than 30 years, during which time they were able to identify a number of biological factors that are presumably associated with the onset of this disorder. First, the level of serotonin. Reducing the amount of sunlight can lead to a decrease in the amount of serotonin, a chemical in the brain that is responsible for our good mood and emotional stability. Secondly, the level of melatonin. It is a hormone that is produced at nightfall, causing our bodies to fall asleep. Since there is less light on winter days, overproduction of this hormone can occur in the body, which causes a feeling of lethargy and drowsiness. In addition, since much less sunlight comes to our skin in winter than during the warm season, people with seasonal affective disorder can produce less vitamin D, which, according to some authors, is related to serotonin activity. Therefore, vitamin D deficiency and depression may be interrelated. According to some reports, the prevalence of ATS is between 1 and 3% of the total population. However, this statistics can hardly be considered accurate. People often don't go to the doctor. Moreover, it's usually very difficult for a specialist to diagnose ATS, as its likely signs are very similar to the symptoms of other types of disorders. In 2016, researchers from Auburn University, USA, published the results that completely refute the existence of the so-called seasonal depression. The authors of the work showed that a broad survey of the population did not reveal any patterns between the depressive state and the time of year. After analyzing the data of the poll, in which more than 30,000 Americans took part, scientists concluded that the number of people suffering from depression does not significantly change depending on the time of year. There were no more cases of depression among those surveyed during the winter compared with people interviewed at a different time of the year. Also, the results of this study showed that in winter the symptoms of those participants in the study, whose responses indicated that they were currently depressed, were not more pronounced.